Welcome to yet another video on my series of videos on keeping yourself secure online. In this video, I would like to discuss a certain kind of fraud known as phishing. So let's begin. So what happens in this kind of an attack is that you have an attacker and you have a victim. What the attacker does is send some kind of communication to the victim. Let's assume for now that it is an email. Now in that email, there is a link to a website and the victim feels that, oh, I know this website, and clicks the link, is taken to, let's say, a login form, types the username and password. But instead of getting logged into that website, the username and password are actually sent back to the attacker's computer. So the attacker now has the username and the password of the victim, and they can use it to either steal your identity or to cause financial damage. Now there are some variations in phishing attacks. For example, we had said earlier that we will send out an email to the victim, the attacker that is. But it is also possible that the attacker sends a SMS or a text message to the victim. So you can get a text on your cell phone and it asks you to go and immediately visit a link. Or you could in fact get a telephone call and somebody will tell you that something has happened, you need to do so and so immediately, whatever. So just remember that it's not just emails, but even text messages or telephonic calls that can be used by attackers. No matter what communication is used, eventually the attacker wants the victim to do something. So in our previous example, the email had instructed the victim to go and click on a link. Another possibility is that there will be an attachment to the email, and if you download that attachment, all kinds of problems can happen. It could be a virus. It could be something known as a malware. So malware is a piece of software which, when you execute, can do all kinds of things to your computer or your phone. So for example, one famous kind of malware is keyloggers. So what keyloggers do is that they keep track of every key you press and send this information to the attacker, so that say you visit a website and you type the password, then the information of that password now is sitting with the attacker. So that's one form of attack. The other possibility is that they can ask you to call a number and speak to someone, and that someone will convince you to give some information which will then cost you a loss of data or loss of money. So just remember that phishing attacks can be of many kinds. I've covered the most common ones, but there can be many kinds of phishing attacks. Now, an important question to ask is, why would the victim even open such a link? Well, there are three reasons primarily. One is that these communications appear authentic. So if the attacker is pretending to be, let's say, Apple, then the attacker will use the exact color schemes of Apple, the exact logo of Apple, the font, etc. If the attacker is mimicking a bank, then they will use the bank logo, the bank colors, etc. So they do a great job in mimicking and pretending that they are some legal entity. So it's not easy to distinguish between a fraud email and a genuine email. The second important technique that these attackers use is to offer you some kind of a lucrative award. For example, if you're getting an email from your shopping website sent by an attacker, then it will contain something like 80% discount on your favorite product. Or it could be an email from Apple saying that if you fill out a certain form, you may stand a chance to win the next iPhone or the iPad. Or the attacker will pretend to be Netflix and offer you a few months of subscription if you fill out a certain form or enroll in some contest. So it's very easy to fall for these traps. You have to be very careful. The third technique that they use is to induce panic or induce a sense of urgency. For example, you could get a call saying that your credit card has been blocked, and until you call so and so number and give your relevant information and verify your identity, your card will be completely cancelled. So you panic, and once you panic, all rationality and cool and calm collected thought goes for a toss. You immediately call the number and the rest of the story is known. So you have to be very careful. These attackers are very, very clever. So now the golden question: how do you protect yourself against phishing? Well, there are a couple of techniques, so let's go through those. First technique has been covered in a previous video, which is to watch out for true HTTPS. So if you haven't already seen the video, please do check out the video where I talk about HTTPS. The link to a video should appear somewhere here. And just to recap what I had mentioned there, if you are on a site which is HTTP, then you will see a lock symbol with a red cross on it. If you are on a fraudulent HTTPS site, the browser will warn you by putting an exclamation mark in front of the lock. And if it is a safe site, then the browser will just show a lock and no other symbol. So this is how you recognize whether a site is true HTTPS or not. The second tip or recommendation that I will give you is that for all critical websites, do not click a link anywhere to access that site. Just type the whole address in your browser. For example, let's say you have a bank account and you wish to do some banking transactions online, then just type the whole address, press the enter key, and only then log in. Otherwise, if you happen to click some link, that link could lead you to a mimicking website where you end up giving your information, but it goes to the wrong people and not your banking service providers. But there is an exception to this. You might get panic and say, oh, I'm not going to click any link in any email from now on. There are some exceptions. For example, when you register a new account, the website typically wants you to verify your email address. So as soon as you register, they send you an email which says, click here to confirm your email. Now, if you know that you are the one who has registered, then you are expecting that email. So there is no harm in clicking on that link. But if it is a link provided by, say, your banker or your shopping website, you should be careful. It is much better to actually type the address yourself. The next important thing you should do is watch out for spellings. For example, I could set up a website which spells Google as triple O, so GOOGLE.com, and it looks exactly the same. But the original Google.com is the correct Google, and the one with the triple O is an attacking website. So you have to be careful about the spellings you type, especially for critical services. It is always worthwhile to invest in a good antivirus software. A lot of people are a little apprehensive or skeptical about whether they should invest money in an antivirus product. They think that their computer is unlikely to be a target. That is not true. In today's day and age, anyone can be a target. So I highly recommend that you invest in a good antivirus software, especially an antivirus software that promises to try and protect you against email attacks and web browser based attacks. Now, many good browsers have inbuilt protection. Some people I know find this protection annoying and go and switch off this protection. Please don't do that. Don't change the settings in your browser to reduce the warnings given by your browser whenever it encounters something suspicious. Always keep these warnings on. So that's it for this video. But remember, I have only scratched the surface as far as phishing is concerned. It is your responsibility to keep track of more and more phishing attacks, the new kinds of phishing attacks that people try. So check the description of the video below. I have kept some links to a few resources online which I find very useful, which have helped me understand phishing better and the different kinds of phishing attacks that are possible. Thank you.